Alexander Grant walked through the lobby of Grant Enterprises as he did every morning. The glass walls let in the soft morning light, and the marble floor reflected the calm shine of the city outside. Everything looked perfect. The staff stood straighter when they saw him. The security guards greeted him quietly. Receptionists smiled in a nervous but respectful way. Alexander was the kind of man who carried silence like a shadow. He didn't rush, he didn't stumble, and he never showed emotion. He had built his company from the ground up. Every success, every contract, every tall building now carrying his company's name was proof of his hard work and control. But under that calm face lay a heart that had not truly healed. 3 years ago, he lost his wife Claire. The car accident had taken her life, and everything he once believed about joy and love. After that day, he turned colder. People whispered that nothing touched him anymore. That morning should have been no different. He was on his way to a board meeting about a new international deal when something strange stopped him mid-step. A glint of silver caught his attention on one of the smaller desks near the entrance. It was a small heart-shaped locket resting beside some scattered papers. First, he didn't think much of it, but something inside him began to twist. He turned his head quietly, eyes fixed on the item. His hand tightened around the folder he was holding. The locket wasn't just familiar, it was unforgettable. He recognized the little dent near the corner and the delicate vine design around the edges. He knew it because he had given it to Claire on their first wedding anniversary. For a moment, Alexander forgot how to breathe, felt as if his entire body froze. The air around him seemed heavier, the voices in the lobby fading to nothing. His eyes burned with disbelief. He blinked once, trying to tell himself it couldn't be real. Locket had been with Claire the night she died. The police had told him they found the broken chain near the wreckage, but the locket itself had never been recovered. He stepped closer to the desk, his heart beating louder than the sound of his shoes on the floor. A young woman sitting there looked up from her laptop. She had brown hair pulled into a loose bun, and her wide blue eyes met his in surprise. She was new, one of the interns he had seen around the office in recent weeks. "Where did you get that?" His voice came out sharper than he meant. The woman blinked, confused. "This?" she asked, picking up the locket carefully. "Oh, it's mine. Is something wrong?" Alexander stared at it so long that she began to look uncomfortable. Her name badge read *** Lily Turner ***. She looked too young to be connected to any of this, yet that locket in her hand made the world blur. "Where did you find it?" he said again, slower this time. Lily frowned as if searching her memory. "I've had it for as long as I can remember. My foster mother gave it to me years ago. She told me it's a charm that brings luck. It's the only thing I have from my early childhood." He nodded, but inside his thoughts spun wildly. It made no sense. The same locket, the same design, the same small dent, and the same energy he used to feel when it was around Claire's neck. He wanted to take it, examine it, open it, but that would have been strange. She might think him crazy. Instead, Alexander forced himself to pull back, though his heart refused to calm. He thanked her quietly and walked toward the elevator. She gave a polite smile, still confused, then slipped the locket back into her pocket and continued working. Inside the elevator, Alexander pressed his back against the wall. For years he had lived with guilt, dreams of their last conversation, and the haunting image of the ocean swallowing her car. For years he had believed there were no second chances. But the sight of that locket made his skin prickle and his chest ache. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself, but the ghost of Claire's laughter flooded back to him. He remembered the way she'd joked that as long as she had the locket, she'd always find her way home. Now, 3 years later, it had found its way back into his company's walls, carried by a stranger who spoke of no connection. Maybe it was just a coincidence. Maybe the design wasn't unique. Yet something heavier told him otherwise. He silently promised himself he would find out where it came from. His mind, always sharp with strategy, began to clear a new space among the numbers and deals. The need to know had returned, burning brighter than reason. As the elevator reached the top floor, Alexander's calm face returned like a mask. To everyone else, he was again the same strong CEO, ready to negotiate, command, and lead. But inside, the ground of his controlled world had begun to shift, and he knew that Silver Locket would not let him rest until he discovered its truth. The next morning, the office buzzed with quiet energy as usual, but Alexander could not concentrate on anything. The image of the silver locket would not leave his mind. During the meeting, while numbers and reports filled the screen, his eyes wandered to the window. The city stretched far below, but all he could see was Claire's smile, and the way she used to turn the locket between her fingers when she was thinking. He had spent half the night staring at the ceiling, wondering how a young intern could have something that belonged to his late wife. By morning, his doubts had grown stronger. He wanted facts, not guesses. He called his personal assistant, a calm and loyal woman named Laura, and asked her for the intern's full name, background, and position in the company. Lily Turner, Laura said, clicking through her tablet. Age 23, joined through our scholarship program, business and marketing student at Lincoln State University, no family listed except a foster mother in another state. Can you get me the contact for the foster mother? Alexander asked quietly. Laura raised her eyes. Is something wrong, sir? Alexander shook his head. Nothing serious. Just want to know more about her background for company record. It was an excuse, but Laura didn't question it. Within an hour, she handed him a paper with some details and a phone number. Alexander thanked her and sat alone in his office. He turned the paper in his hand for a long while. A sudden phone call questioning an old foster mother about a locket would sound strange. What if it meant nothing? And yet what if it meant everything? Downstairs, Lily worked quietly at her desk. She liked this job even though it carried pressure. She admired Alexander from afar like many others did. He always looked calm and intelligent, never raising his voice, never wasting words. But ever since yesterday, she felt uneasy. When he saw the locket, his face had changed, just for a second. It was the first time she had seen fear and shock on his face. She could not forget how he had looked at it, as if he had seen a ghost. At lunch, one of her teammates, Nora, noticed her distant mood. You're so quiet today, Lily. Everything fine? Lily nodded. Yes, just tired. I think Mr. Grant recognized my locket from somewhere. He looked so strange when he saw it. Nora chuckled. Maybe it reminded him of someone. Don't worry. Big bosses always act weird at times. Lily smiled politely, but inside, she felt something unusual stirring. When she touched the small pendant hanging from her neck, warmth spread through her hand. It had always comforted her, like a piece of sunlight resting near her heart. But lately it made her dream things she could not explain. Every night since starting her internship, she saw flashes of water, screams, broken glass, someone calling her name in pain. A man's voice, deep and loving, fading into silence. She always woke up shaking. That afternoon, while she carried some folders across the lobby, she found herself walking beside Alexander again. He looked at her briefly, then spoke in a lower tone. Lily, if you don't mind, could we talk in my office for a few minutes? Her heart jumped. Yes, of course, sir. Inside the quiet office, he gestured for her to sit. For a moment, neither spoke. The air felt heavy, thick with something hidden. Finally, Alexander said, I hope you don't find my question strange, but that locket of yours, may I see it again? She nodded, unhooking it gently from her neck. He took it carefully, his expression softening. He turned it in his palm, noticing every small scratch and mark. It was the same one. He was sure now. Do you know who owned it before your foster mother gave it to you? He asked. Lily shook her head. No, sir. She told me she found it at a roadside years ago. I was very young then. She said I was sick that year, and this was the first thing that made me smile. I've kept it ever since. Alexander's chest tightened. A roadside, he repeated quietly. Yes, near a river, she said after a pause. She said she was driving home late and saw a flash of metal under her car lights. The same night of the accident, the search teams had said part of the wreckage washed downstream. Could the locket have drifted away, only to be found by this woman? The thought sent a chill down his spine. He gave the locket back to Lily and forced a calm smile. Thank you, he said. It's very unique. Lily studied him curiously. Did it remind you of something? Looked toward the window, where the afternoon light glowed soft and pale. Yes, someone I once loved, he answered, his voice almost a whisper. The silence between them felt alive. Lily wanted to say something comforting but could not find the right words. She placed the locket back around her neck and nodded politely. When she left the office, Alexander remained seated, hands tightly clasped. He knew then he could not ignore this anymore. He reached for his phone and called a trusted private investigator he had used before. His voice was steady but cold, with new determination. He gave the name Lily Turner, her history, and one strange request. "I need to know everything about the origin of a silver heart-shaped locket," he said, and how it ended up with her. After the call, he looked out at the skyline. Somewhere beyond those towers and clouds, he felt Claire's memory stirring, restless and near. For the first time in 3 years, hope and fear shared the same space in his chest. The calm walls of his world had started to tremble again. Days passed slowly after that strange conversation. Alexander tried to bury himself in work, but his focus was broken. Every meeting felt longer than usual. Every night felt colder than before. The thought of the locket and the young woman who wore it refused to leave his mind. He started waking before dawn, sitting in his large living room, listening to the quiet hum of the city that never stopped. Once, he had loved mornings. Claire used to bring him coffee while humming soft songs in the kitchen. The smell of her favorite perfume would fill the air. Now, only silence lived there. He kept the photo frame of their wedding on a small table near the window. He often looked at it, but rarely touched it. It was his way of pretending he was fine. One evening, the phone rang. It was Daniel, the private investigator he had hired. His voice came calm but serious. "Mr. Grant, I've looked into what you asked. The locket's origin is unusual. It matches a description found in an old report from the day of your wife's accident." Alexander straightened in his chair. "What does it say?" "The report mentions a missing item, a silver heart-shaped locket engraved with vines. It was listed as untraceable. But there is more. Around the same time, a foster mother reported finding a small child near a river about 40 miles from the crash site. The timing almost matches the day of the accident." Alexander's chest tightened. A child? What condition was she in? "The records say the girl was weak, confused, and couldn't remember anything from before that night. The authorities never connected it to the crash because the girl seemed too young, but the location, the date, and the locket are all linked." He closed his eyes. "Send me everything you have. Every document, every name." That night, Alexander read through the files as rain whispered against his office windows. The papers were old, creased, but every line pulled him deeper into disbelief. The little girl's name was written as Lily, given by her foster mother, Martha Turner. The file said Lily had been found near a broken guardrail. The rescuer described seeing a small piece of silver glinting near her hand. Alexander couldn't understand what it meant. Claire had no children, had talked about it before but decided to wait because both were busy with their careers. How then could this young woman, who looked nothing like Claire, be connected to the accident that took her? The next morning at work, Lily noticed Alexander standing near the window with a strange look in his eyes. He wasn't angry or distant, just lost in a memory. She approached politely and asked if needed anything. "I'm fine," he said, his voice quieter than usual. "Thank you, Lily," she nodded but didn't leave right away. "Sir, may I ask something personal?" He looked surprised but told her to continue. "You said that locket reminded you of someone? Was it someone close to you?" Alexander hesitated. For years, he had locked that part of his life away. Yet looking at Lily's kind eyes, he felt a strange pull, like he could trust her. "It belonged to my wife," he said finally. "She passed away a few years ago. She never went anywhere without it." Lily's hand went to her chest where the locket rested. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I didn't mean to bring up something painful. It's not your fault." "I just don't understand how it found its way to you," he answered. Lily lowered her eyes. "Sometimes I think this locket has its own story. I have these dreams that feel too real. In them, I see the ocean and someone calling my name. But I don't know who it is." Her voice trembled slightly, and Alexander felt a chill crawl down his back. The image of his wife's accident came rushing again. The storm, the twisting road, the last time he saw her smiling before leaving for a business trip. He wanted to ask more, but his phone rang, pulling him away. When he turned back, Lily had already stepped out to deliver some files. He watched her go, feeling something inside him shift once again. Later that day, Daniel called with another update. "Mr. Grant, I found something else. Your wife's body was never identified with complete certainty. The accident report confirmed a wreck, But there was confusion about the passenger count, and no DNA confirmation was ever made because the body was too damaged. I don't want to give false hope, but something doesn't add up. Alexander slowly sat down, fear and hope mixing inside him. He had accepted Claire's death for years, but this small whisper of doubt tore that acceptance apart. His hands shook as he held the phone. "Find out everything," he said. "I don't care how long it takes." That night he could not sleep. I kept seeing Lily's blue eyes in his mind. They were not Claire's eyes, but something about them carried the same warmth, the same light that used to guide him through every storm. The connection between the two women no longer felt like coincidence. As he stood by the window again, the city lights glowing far below, he reached into his coat pocket and touched his wedding ring. It had never left his hand. For the first time, he wondered if life was giving him another chance not to fix the past, but to understand it. Somewhere far away, the same rain that touched his windows fell near the river where the locket had been found years ago. The world had changed, but the thread that tied one heart to another had never really broken. The next few days turned into a quiet storm inside Alexander's mind. He attended meetings, gave presentations, and signed papers as always, but his thoughts were somewhere else. He kept seeing the accident reports in his head, the photographs, and the pages that connected his wife's missing locket to the same young woman now working in his building. He tried to find a logical reason, but nothing about this felt logical anymore. When the office emptied one evening, he stayed behind. The city outside glowed with yellow lights. His phone buzzed on the table. It was Daniel again. "Mr. Grant, I looked deeper into that night. Rescue report mentions another detail. The car that crashed down the cliff had signs of tampering. The brakes were damaged before the accident. Someone wanted it to happen." Alexander's voice became hard. "Are you certain?" "Yes. I found a mechanic's note that was never included in the police records. Someone paid to close that part of the case." Alexander's jaw tightened. "Keep digging. Find out who paid and why." After the call ended, he sat alone, staring at his reflection in the window. The truth was trying to come out. For years he had accepted Claire's death as fate, as something he could never control. But now a different picture was forming, a picture filled with shadows and secrets. He turned the lights off and stepped out. Downstairs, Lily was still at her desk, sorting files before leaving. She looked up and smiled when she saw him. "Good night, sir." "Lily," he said, stopping near her table. "You work late often?" She laughed softly. "Only when I want to finish things on time. I like quiet evenings. They help me think. Do you ever remember anything from before you lived with your foster mother?" he asked suddenly. She blinked. "Not much. I've tried, but everything feels blurry. She told me I was found near a river after a storm, but I don't know how I got there. I used to think maybe I had family who lost me, but no one ever came." Alexander felt his heart twist. He wanted to tell her everything right then, to show her the reports, the broken links that joined their stories, but he held back. He could not risk hurting her or bringing more confusion until he had proof. "I see," he said quietly. "You should go home now. You've been working too much." She nodded and packed her bag. When she passed by him on the way out, the faint scent of her perfume brushed against him. For a second, it was like the past overlapping with the present. Claire used to wear the same fragrance. Closed his eyes, feeling the ache, returned stronger than ever. Later that night, Lily reached her small apartment. It was simple, with worn furniture and a few photos on the walls. She placed her bag on the table and looked at herself in the mirror. She touched the locket around her neck. Under the weak light, it shimmered faintly. Something about it made her chest tighten. She opened it gently. Inside was a tiny photo she had never changed. It was too faded to see clearly. But sometimes she imagined a smiling woman beside a man whose face she couldn't quite recognize. She put the locket back and tried to rest, but soon fell into uneasy sleep. Her dreams carried her to a place covered in mist. She heard the sound of water crashing, the smell of burning metal, and a voice calling her name. The voice told her to run, and a warm hand reached out toward her. She jolted awake, sweating. Her heart pounded as she whispered to herself, "Who are you? Why do I keep seeing you?" At the same time, across town, Alexander sat in his study, surrounded by files and photographs. He had found new evidence from Daniel's report. Claire had been investigating something inside the company before she died. She had gathered data that could expose several high-ranking board members for fraud. The notes showed she planned to tell Alexander, but never got the chance. He now understood why someone had wanted her gone. Rage fired inside him, but was quickly replaced by despair. If she had known she was in danger, had she tried to contact him that night? Could she have survived somehow? He picked up her old diary from a locked drawer. There were pages written weeks before the accident. In one entry, Claire had written about strange phone calls, people following her, and her growing fear. She ended one note with a line that made him freeze. "If something happens, the truth will find its way back through what I carry around my heart." The words pointed straight to the locket. He leaned forward, gripping the pages tightly. That meant the locket wasn't just jewelry. It contained something she wanted him to find, something now in the hands of Lily Turner. The night stretched long and silent. Alexander closed the diary and stood up. He looked out at the city lights again, his reflection staring back like a stranger. He no longer felt trapped by grief. His pain had turned into purpose. He knew now he had to solve the puzzle that fate had thrown in front of him. The locket, the lost memory, the corruption, the accident, all of it was connected. And somewhere in the middle of that connection stood Lily, innocent and unaware, holding the key to the truth Claire had died to protect. The morning came with heavy clouds. Rain tapped gently against the glass walls of Grant Enterprises. Alexander entered the office early, his mind already tense, barely greeted anyone, and went straight to his private room. A pile of files lay open on his desk, and across them sat a small flash drive Daniel had sent overnight. Inside it were copies of Claire's research, taken from her hidden folders that had been buried deep in old company servers. When he opened the files, a list of names appeared. Board members, high investors, and secret agreements that looked illegal. Claire had been right all along. She had found evidence that a group inside his company was stealing money through fake charities. They had hidden their tracks by moving money across ghost accounts. Claire had planned to expose them, but before she could, her car crashed. Alexander pressed his fingers to his temple. His heart felt heavy. He had trusted every person on that list once. Among them was a name he had never expected to see: Henry Cole, his oldest business partner and friend. Henry was the man who had comforted him after Claire's death. He was also one of the company's original founders. While Alexander tried to steady himself, a soft knock came at the door. It was Lily, carrying a stack of reports. "Sir, I brought the data you asked for yesterday." "Thank you," he said without looking up. She placed the papers on his desk, then glanced at the scattered files. Now, noticing the name Claire Grant written on one page, her curiosity flickered. "Was that your wife's name?" she asked gently. He nodded. "Yes. Why?" Lily hesitated. "I had a dream last night. I was standing near a cliff by the ocean. I heard that name whispered in the wind. Claire. It felt real. I don't know why, but it scared me." Alexander looked up sharply. "You heard that name in your dream?" "Yes," she said, frowning. "I could see lights, a broken road, and water rushing below. I don't even know if it means anything." He took a slow breath. The coincidences were becoming too many. He wanted to find a reason, a clear line between emotion and truth, but everything about her and that locket defied reason. "Lily," he said quietly, "I need you to trust me for a moment. That locket you wear, could you let me examine it again? There's something inside it. Might be able to help you understand." Lily felt uncertain, but also sensed something honest in his voice. She unclasped it and handed it over. Alexander held it carefully and used a small tool from his desk to open a hidden compartment at its back. Inside, he found a thin metal disc, no larger than a coin. It wasn't jewelry at all. It was a microchip. Lily leaned forward in surprise. "What is that?" Alexander's pulse quickened. "Proof," he said under his breath. "This is what Claire must have hidden before she died." He slipped the chip into a secure reader. The screen came alive with codes, charts, and documents linking the stolen company money to the names Claire had listed. Everything matched. Lily stared at the screen, confused. "So your wife found all this before she died?" "Yes," Alexander said, his voice heavy. "And now I know why she was in danger. This evidence could destroy powerful people." Lily's hands trembled slightly. And it was with me all along. I didn't even know. He turned towards her. Maybe it was meant to find you so it could find me again. Claire always said some things travel beyond time when the heart carries a promise. His eyes softened as he said it. Lily lowered her gaze, unsure of the strange comfort she felt hearing those words. Before they could speak more, Alexander's phone rang. It was an unknown number, he answered. A low voice said, "Mr. Grant, stop digging into the past if you want to keep your company standing." Then the line went dead. He stood still, the threat echoing in the silence. Lily looked frightened. "Who was that?" "Someone who doesn't want the truth revealed," Alexander replied. His voice remained calm, but his mind was racing. He knew this was bigger than he first thought. He told Lily to go home early and stay safe. "Lock your doors tonight," he said firmly. "This is not just about work anymore." She wanted to ask why, but stopped herself. The seriousness in his eyes told her this was not the time. She nodded and left quietly. After she was gone, Alexander closed his blinds and started deleting certain files from the shared network, hiding copies only he could reach. Rain poured harder outside as thunder rolled in the distance. Sat at his desk, holding the empty locket in his hand. Claire's words from her diary came back to him. "If something happens, the truth will find its way back through what I carry around my heart." Now he finally understood. The truth had indeed found its way back, but it had chosen an innocent girl to carry it. He whispered softly to the empty room. "I will finish what you started, Claire." Far across town, Lily sat on her bed holding a warm cup of tea. She kept turning the small chain around her fingers, feeling a strange connection to a life she did not remember. She looked out at the stormy sky and whispered, "Why me?" Neither of them knew that the storm outside was only the beginning. Hidden in the dark corners of the city, men were already making calls, planning their next steps, prepared to protect their secrets at any cost.